My name is Cass Mann. I'm the founder of Positively Healthy and the chief executive. And Positively Healthy is United Kingdom's only gay men's HIV and AIDS charity. And we're now in our 23rd year of operations. Something I didn't expect I would still be doing 23 years later, because I thought gay men would have learned from the first, second and third wave of AIDS how exactly to stop it. I will make a statement that might not appeal to everyone, but I will say any gay man getting infected today is getting infected deliberately, because we know the ways to avoid getting HIV, and anyone getting infected has to a certain extent made a choice to not practice safer sex, to not use a condom, to have sex when they are incapable of negotiating safety, such as under the influence of alcohol, recreational drugs, particularly ecstasy, lysergic acid diethylamide, and crystal meth, which is the new major killer on the scene, as well as, of course, the old favorites, alcohol, works every time. No gay man I know takes a drug, they take a whole range of drugs. So what they have is a polypharmaceutical effect, which renders them unconscious, and you add to the mix something like crystal meth or ketamine, special K, and it's lethal. So anyone getting infected today, any gay man getting infected today, has to a certain extent made a decision that it's okay to become HIV positive, or even to go on to develop AIDS. Barebacking, they call it, don't they? It sounds romantic, it sounds like some sort of Western, like some sort of Brokerage Mountain scenario. Well, it's not. I've seen people in hospitals shitting their lives away who thought barebacking was a fun thing to do. Today in London we have clubs specifically for HIV positive gay men where they can go on a Sunday afternoon. They open about 2. So, different clubs open at different times, and you get 200, 300, 400, 500 people who claim to be positive, and these clubs are called things like Pigpit Plus and various derivatives of those names. And in these clubs, these gay men who are HIV positive or claim they are, you might have bug chasers present as well, those who want to become infected, who have unprotected sex with each other throughout the course of the next few hours. The clubs boast in being alcohol free, but they are death wish clubs. They are clubs where transmission of HIV, hepatitis B, C, whatever STI is, sexually transmitted infection, is going around, is shared by everybody. The goodie bag you leave with at the end of the visit is something you didn't come in with, perhaps a new strain of HIV. You could get a reinfection, a co-infection, a super-infection. You could pick up hepatitis, which is a killer, B and C. You could pick up syphilis, all sorts of STIs, which in combination with HIV, or even by themselves, are killers. But these clubs are sanctioned. Great Britain's major AIDS charity, Terence Higgins Trust, gives a seal of approval, a hallmark. They call these places play zones, and these places trade because they say, oh, we provide condoms, so we are somehow not complicit in what takes place because condoms are available, and whether or not people choose to use them or not use them is another matter. But to me, that is not exoneration. It is something that is a dereliction of duty when this country's leading AIDS charity says we will hallmark a venue where unsafe sex takes place, knowing it takes place, and allow new infections to occur. And I puzzled about this. I thought, why is this happening? And then I thought, hey, it's a really simple answer. If AIDS charities, such as including mine, didn't have a regular new influx of HIV positive gay men, we'd have to close down, wouldn't we? We'd all be out of a job. So what keeps us in work, and hey, I would love to be out of work in this field, is a regular input of newly infected HIV positive gay men. They pay our salaries, they get us to work in the morning, they make us feel good about ourselves. Because, you know, last year in this country we had over 2,000 gay men who became HIV positive. Why the fuck? Everyone knows how to avoid it. It's no big drama and no big deal to avoid HIV if you're a gay man. In this country we have a law. When you get into a car, you've got to wear a seatbelt. You get into your car, and we had a campaign when seatbelts were launched called Clunk Click Every Trip. And the law was resisted. People said it's against our freedom, it's against our freedom to express our liberty, libertarian. It's a dereliction of all our rights, and so they opposed the law, but it was found to be a very good law. People who wore seatbelts didn't die. Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed, if they'd worn seatbelts, hey, they'd still be here. So why don't we transfer the same intelligence over to the way we have sex? If when we get into a car we wear a seatbelt to preserve our lives, if every time we fuck, why the hell don't we use a condom? Condoms are not 100% foolproof, but they're better than nothing. So I can't work out why. I mean, I can now, but I couldn't work out why gay men refused to wear condoms. I had to go back to Freud to understand what was happening. Freud's had a bad press, I know, but he said some remarkably astute things. And one of the things I picked up from Freud that to me explained what was happening with gay men getting infected was something he called thanatos, which is a love of death. And in the gay communities, I feel we have moved from eros in the 60s with sexual liberation, love of body, love of sex, love of pleasure, hedonism. And we moved straight from that narcissistic, pleasuring world, not into philos, which is love of your brother, or agape, which is unconditional love, but to thanatos, death wish. I feel it is true, and I have in 23 years found this to be true, having worked with over 4,000 gay men in this time, that we are more attached to death than to life, especially as we approach a certain age. Around about 40 is what the literature, the scientific literature tells us gay men feel lives aren't worth living. And I think gradually, as we approach that age, HIV doesn't become a problem because life isn't worth living anyway. And some of the newest infections and the most worrying infections are in gay men now, in that age group. The ones who avoided becoming HIV positive for all those decades and are now succumbing, they're joining the club. It's like they're letting the other shoe drop. I, for instance, have lost all my peer group. I started off, before I started Positively Healthy, running Great Britain's largest gay nightclub, Heaven, and also Great Britain's most notorious nightclub called the Embassy Club in Old Bond Street, which was the glitziest, ritziest club in Great Britain. And every single person I work with there who's gay is dead of AIDS, but also, it's not just HIV, they were also very heavily into drugs, many of them. And then I think of the people who could still be here because the drugs do work these days, they really do work, who would be as appalled as I am as to why young men and gay men over 40 are getting infected, because our love of death has overcome our love of life, and thanatos has overcome eros, and death has become what we worship now. And this is something that is recognized by the AIDS charities that promote venues where unsafe sex happens, because they say, hey, these guys are going to have unsafe sex anyway, so let's make a living out of it. I mean, I can't speak for every one of those charities or agencies, but that's what I see happening. Do your own research, go online, see what these charities are saying. Put their names into Google and have a look at their websites. You'll find that they're not that attached to keeping people safe, because you would not hallmark a venue where unsafe sex takes place by saying it's okay because somewhere on the walls there's a condom machine. It's not good enough to say that. And let's not use the word barebacking. It's actually a slow suicide. It's not clever. It's not intelligent. And I've been at workshops where health educators who work for various charities say that, oh, we don't use condoms ourselves, and these are HIV positive gay men, because I don't like anything coming between me and my pleasure. And they don't even tell their partners if they're positive or have AIDS or anything like that. They say, well, it takes two to tango. If they don't ask me, I don't disclose, nor do I take the precaution that makes disclosure unnecessary. And I say, no, if you know you're positive, you have to, even if you don't disclose, insist on a condom being used. And they say, no. If I insisted on the condom being used, they'd assume I was positive. I'd say, no, they'd assume you were intelligent. But intelligence is in short supply in the gay community. It's a very unconscious community now. What the gay community revolves around today is an enormous amount of drugs and alcohol. It fuels our community. And in that context, the content of becoming HIV positive is not surprising. So if you're seeing 2,500 gay men getting infected last year, heaven knows how many this year, it's only going to escalate, because it's not a question of education, it's a question of respecting yourself enough to not want to become infected. If you respected yourself enough, you would every time use a condom, you would every time take precautions, you would every time insist, and you would check out your partner. For instance, these venues where people have sex, parks and various dark rooms and back rooms, you don't know who you're having sex with. I mean, if you saw them in the light, you might see there's something wrong with them. When your body is ill or diseased, there are sometimes clear indications that your body is ill or diseased, and you can pick it up. The person might have a rash, they might have genital warts, they might have things you think, I don't want to have sex with you because, my God, what the hell is that? But because the way we have sex is the lights are off, you don't know what's going on, who are you having sex with? You're having sex with your killer. That's what you're having sex with, because you're not intelligent enough to see who you're fucking or who's fucking you. You don't know what's going on because you haven't seen this person. If you have sex in the back room or in a park where there's no lights, who are you having sex with? You know, it's death. I mean, not only are gay men getting mugged and beaten up and assaulted and killed, but getting HIV infected is not that dissimilar, except this time you did it to yourself. And I would say to you, my message to you is very clear. Every time you get into your car, clunk clip every trip. You wear a seatbelt. Every time you have sex, you rubber up, or you don't have sex. If you haven't got a condom, hey, don't have sex. Do something else. I can't see HIV amongst gay men stopping in its tracks, because I just find a total lack of intelligence and any self-awareness of who we are as gay men. We seem to have not learned from the last 3 decades of HIV and AIDS, and if we had learned the lessons, HIV and AIDS would have been stopped in their tracks a long time ago. And because we have no elders, because we have no one to learn from, the first wave killed everybody, well, almost everybody, and then gradually no one was around that we wanted to listen to, so there was no one to learn from. We had no role models, I mean, I'm not discounting people like Larry Kramer or the late Michael Callan or people like that, but you know, I can think of only 2 or 3 names, and the way I feel education works is we learn from one another more than we learn from icons. And because the one another are as unconscious, as unaware, as asleep as we are, we defeat each other, we pull each other down into the abyss, into the pit. That's why we're dying, because the ones we're clinging to are going down the mountain with us. And if we're all on that rope climbing up together, once the first person falls, we fall with them. We're all falling together. That's what's happening to our community today. That's why we're getting HIV infected, and that's why we're dying. And I finally want to say that The first wave of AIDS, everyone was sympathetic, empathetic. They understood that we didn't know there was a killer virus out there, or a potentially killer virus out there. Now less and less, because I keep hearing, how come you at 21 or you at 40 are becoming HIV positive? You know what you need to do to avoid, so we don't get the sympathy, we don't get the empathy. And once we lose the funding, once we lose the sympathy, the empathy, once we lose access to services, I mean, someone who's HIV positive costs the British government about £25,000 to £30,000 a year to take care of, as far as the medication and clinical care goes. They might think this is avoidable. Why are we funding someone who is going out and getting reinfected and co-infected and super-infected, picking up new diseases, thinking, why are we keeping this person alive? Already there's talk about not operating on obese people, not operating on smokers and alcoholics. HIV positive gay men might be next in line. Let's not give them that opportunity. I don't know how we get intelligent. Each one does it for themselves. I can't do it for you. You can't do it for me. Each does it for themselves. Caveat emptor.